Imagine a 5-year-old boy in a quiet Indian village suddenly claiming he used to own a television shop in another city, in another life, and that he was murdered. Sounds like the plot of a thriller, right? But for one family in Uttar Pradesh, this was no fiction. The boy's name was Titu Singh. By all appearances, he was like any other kid, playful, curious, a little stubborn, but then came the words that shattered the ordinary. One morning he told his older brother, "This isn't my real home. I used to live in Agra. I had a TV shop. My name was Suresh Verma." At first, it was brushed off as imagination. Children say strange things, but Titu wouldn't stop. Day after day, he repeated the same claims with chilling confidence. He remembered street names, neighbors, even where the keys to his shop were kept. Most disturbingly, he claimed he was shot in the head and killed. Can a child really recall a past life? Or was something else going on? Titu's family was deeply traditional, but they were also protective. His older brother Ramesh was especially disturbed by the details, the consistency, the intensity. It wasn't something a child could just make up. Ramesh decided to test him. Without telling anyone, he took Titu to Agra, the city the boy kept mentioning. It was hours away and completely unfamiliar to young Titu, or at least it should have been. But the moment they stepped off the train, something eerie happened. Titu led the way. Without hesitation, he navigated through the crowded streets, past winding alleys, straight to a specific neighborhood. There, in front of a house and attached storefront, he stopped. "This is it," he said. "This is my home. This is where I was killed." Ramesh stood frozen. The house belonged to a man named Suresh Verma. Or rather, it had. Suresh had been murdered 9 years earlier, shot in the head by unknown assailants. The case was never solved. Was this some unbelievable coincidence? Or was the boy telling the truth? Inside the house, a woman came to the door. She was Suresh Verma's widow, and that's when things took an even darker turn. The woman at the door introduced herself as Uma, Suresh Verma's widow. When Ramesh, Titu's brother, explained why he was there, Uma's face turned pale. He said his younger brother had been insisting for years that he was Suresh Verma. Reborn, she was silent for a moment, and then she asked, "What does he say exactly?" Ramesh recited the details Titu had been claiming. The name of the shop, Suresh Radios, located in Sadar Bazaar. The names of Uma's children, Romu and Somu, her own name, her father-in-law's name, the white car Suresh drove, the fatal shot to the temple, even where the bullet hit. Uma was stunned. Every single detail matched. Still, she was skeptical. Could this just be information someone fed him? Could the boy have read about it in a newspaper? But Ramesh shook his head. He's been saying all this since he was barely 2. He couldn't even read then. It was too much to ignore. Uma told her in-laws, Suresh's parents. They too were overwhelmed. Could this child truly be their son? Somehow returned? They needed to know for sure, so they agreed to visit the boy in person, without warning him ahead of time. Back in Titu's village, it was just another day. He was having lunch when a group of strangers showed up at the door. The moment he saw them, his eyes lit up. He dropped his food, ran to them, and without hesitation, threw his arms around them. "Mother, father!" he cried out, wrapping his arms around Suresh's elderly parents. Everyone in the room froze. Titu then turned to Uma. At first, he was shy, just for a moment. Then, as if something clicked inside him, he invited her to sit beside him. "How are the boys?" he asked her, referring to Romu and Somu. "Do they still talk about the fair in Dolpur?" Uma's breath caught. That was something only she and Suresh would have known. Afterward, the family began to leave. A car was waiting outside. Titu had never seen a car in person before, and yet he walked right up to it as if it were nothing new. He tried to climb in, thinking he was going home with them. When he realized he wasn't, he became furious. He screamed at his mother, tried to pull away from his father, and ran to Titu Singh, Suresh's father, crying and clinging to him like a lost son. Eventually, they calmed him down. Chanda promised they would meet again soon, but now everyone knew they needed proof, real proof, that this wasn't just a strange coincidence or a child's fantasy. They brought him to Agra, and they were ready to test him. If Titu truly was the reincarnation of Suresh Verma, then surely he'd remember more than just names. So the family decided to test him. No hints, no clues, just observation. The first test was subtle. As they drove through Agra in a car, they deliberately passed Suresh radios, the very shop Titu had described, but didn't stop. They didn't point it out. They didn't say a word. But Titu's reaction was instant. "Stop," he yelled. "That's my shop. Why are you driving past it?" Everyone in the car went silent. The shop was just a blur outside the window. There was no sign facing them. But somehow, he knew. That could have been a lucky guess, right? Maybe. Then came the second test. They brought him inside the shop. No one told him anything. They just watched. Titu's body language shifted. He didn't move like a 5-year-old. He walked through the store like he owned it, sat down on the shop stool, adjusted his posture, waved his hands exactly the way Suresh used to. He pointed at the back wall. "You changed this. This shelf wasn't here before," he said. "That corner, that was my workspace." Uma's eyes welled up. It was uncanny, too precise. But there was one final test left. They brought him to Suresh's old home. But before Titu arrived, they quietly sent Suresh's 2 sons outside to play with the neighborhood kids. A sort of lineup, no labels, no introductions. Titu stepped out of the car, scanned the group of children, and walked straight up to 2 boys. "Romu, Somu," he said, "you've grown so much." He had picked them out instantly, 3 for 3. Now even the skeptics in the family were shaken. The similarities, the instincts, the deeply personal knowledge, none of it could be faked, at least not by a child barely old enough to tie his own shoes. The media caught wind of the story. Headlines exploded. A child claiming to be reborn to solve his own murder? It was too surreal to ignore. But behind all the attention, a darker question loomed. If Titu remembered how he died, could he also remember who killed him? The idea that a 5-year-old boy might remember his own death was disturbing enough. But what came next pushed the boundaries of belief even further. Titu, calm, composed, almost eerily mature, claimed he knew exactly who had killed him in his past life. He didn't speak in riddles, he was direct. He said that on the evening of August 28, 1983, Suresh Verma was shot in the head outside his home, right as he honked the car horn for the gate to open. The shooter wasn't a stranger. According to Titu, it was someone he had known, trusted. "A business partner," he said, "someone who was close to me, jealous." That confession alone would have been brushed off, just the wild imagination of a child, if it hadn't been for what happened next. The Agra police took it seriously. They had little to lose. The original case had gone cold. There were no eyewitnesses. No one had ever been convicted. So when Titu provided a name, yes, a name, they brought the man in for questioning. They didn't expect much, but under pressure, the man broke. He confessed. The details of the murder matched exactly what Titu had been saying for years. Shot outside the gate, 2 assailants. No damage to the car, but a bullet straight to the temple. No witnesses, no motive, except resentment. That confession reopened a 7-year-old murder case, and for the first time in Indian legal history, a courtroom heard testimony based on reincarnation. Titu was brought to court to testify. He spoke clearly, no hesitation. He described the attack, the betrayal, and even the emotional confusion he felt waking up as someone else. Still, the judge needed something more tangible. That's when the doctors stepped in, with the autopsy and a birthmark report. When Suresh Verma had been shot, the bullet had entered on the right side of his head and exited on the left. And under Titu's hair, hidden all this time, were 2 birthmarks, one on the right, one on the left. Same size, same shape, same location. Dr. Ian Stevenson, a respected professor from the University of Virginia who had studied reincarnation for decades, cited the case in his research. Along with his colleague, Dr. Antonia Mills, they reviewed Titu's behavior, memories, and the violent circumstances of Suresh's death. According to them, the case had all the signs of genuine past life recall. So when the court weighed the confession, the evidence, the behavior, and the testimony, they delivered a verdict. Titu Singh, born Toran Singh, was declared the reincarnation of Suresh Verma, and Suresh's killers were sentenced. Justice had come full circle, but not from this world alone. Justice had been served, a murder solved, a killer convicted. But what happens after the headlines fade? For a 5-year-old boy carrying the memories of another man's life, the real struggle was just beginning. Titu, born Toran Singh, was no longer just a curious child from a quiet village. He was now the center of one of the most baffling and controversial reincarnation cases the world had ever seen. But he was also just a little boy, with 2 families, and a choice no child should ever have to make. Suresh Verma's parents had lost their son once. Now they'd found him again, inside a child's body. But they also understood the weight of that miracle. They knew that if they tried to bring him into their home permanently, they would be tearing him away from the only parents who had truly raised him. Titu's biological mother and father were heartbroken. How do you fight for your son when he believes he already had another life, another family, another wife, even another death? They feared the day he would grow up and leave them behind. But something unexpected happened. Titu didn't choose. He didn't abandon one life for the other. Instead, he lived with both. He stayed in his village with his birth parents, went to school, played with friends, but he also visited Agra, spent time with Uma, the woman who had been his wife in a life he couldn't forget. He visited Suresh's sons, whom he remembered raising, and he called Suresh's parents mother and father too. 2 homes, 2 histories, 1 soul. As he grew older, the memories didn't fade, but Titu learned to live with them, to separate the past from the present. And in time, he forged a new identity that honored both. Today, Toran Singh, still known by many as Titu, is an assistant professor at Banaras Hindu University. He still remembers everything, and from time to time he still visits Agra, quietly walking the streets of his past. When asked what he believes, he says this: "We can't live 2 lives. What's gone is gone. What remains is ours to live fully." His story isn't just about reincarnation or justice. It's about identity, memory, grief, and the mysterious ways in which life sometimes refuses to let go. In the end, maybe life isn't a straight line. Maybe it's a circle where endings and beginnings quietly meet again. If this story gave you chills, If it made you think twice about life, death, and what might come after, then don't keep it to yourself. Like this video to show your support, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to our channel for more true stories that blur the line between fact and the unexplainable. We've got more cases like this coming soon, real, raw, and unforgettable. Until next time, stay curious.